People think grandmothers are quiet, soft, harmless. But they forget something very important. Grandmothers have lived long lives. They've seen good and evil. They survived years of pain and strength. And when someone hurts their family, there is nothing more dangerous. This story is about a grandmother named Martha Green and the secret she kept buried for 40 years. A secret that would come back, not to haunt her, but to give her the chance for the most powerful revenge she ever imagined.
The old farmhouse stood at the edge of Hayfield Town. Wind always carried the smell of soil, the distant hum of tractors, and the soft rustle of the wheat fields. And inside the house lived Martha Green, 79 years old, a quiet silver-haired woman who loved gardening, baking, and listening to old classical songs on her radio. And the star of her life, Ava, 17 years old, her granddaughter, smart, artistic, soft-spoken, the girl who brought light into her grandmother's lonely home. Ava had lived with Martha ever since her mother, Martha's daughter, passed away unexpectedly 6 years earlier. They were all each other had, and their little world felt peaceful, safe, protected, until the night Ava came home late, shaking, pale, eyes full of terror.
"Sweetheart, what happened?" Martha asked gently, reaching for her hand. Ava pulled away, not out of anger, but fear. "I can't tell you, Grandma," she whispered. "He'll hurt you." Martha froze. "He?" Martha's heart clenched. Who was he? A boyfriend? A stranger? Someone from school? Ava backed into her room and shut the door quietly. Martha walked to the living room, sat in her rocking chair, and stared at the shadows on the walls. Her fingers trembled. Her voice cracked. "He won't hurt me, baby," she whispered to herself. "Not again." But she said nothing more. Not yet, because she recognized that fear in Ava's eyes. She had seen it decades ago in her own reflection. A few days later, the truth began showing itself. A black SUV parked outside the farmhouse, engine running, windows tinted. A figure inside, watching, waiting. Ava stared at it through the curtains, frozen. Martha stepped beside her, wiping her hands with her apron. "Is that him?" she asked. Ava swallowed hard. Her silence was the answer. The SUV drove away when Martha stepped outside. That told her everything she needed to know. Whoever this man was, he didn't fear Ava. He didn't fear the law. He feared her, an old woman. That meant he knew exactly what he was doing. Predators always underestimate the quiet ones. Martha watched the taillights fade, and for the first time in years, she felt the past knocking on her door. The past she had buried, the past she had escaped. That night, Ava finally broke. They were washing dishes together, the warm water steaming in the cold kitchen. "Grandma, I didn't tell you everything," Ava whispered. Martha kept rinsing the plates. "I know, sweetheart, and you'll tell me when you're ready." Ava's eyes filled with tears. It's not just a boy at school." Martha stopped. Ava's voice trembled. "He's 26. Silence. "He told me we're meant to be together. He waits outside school. He said if I ever tell anyone, he'll ruin your life. He said he knows things about you,
Things from the past. Martha slowly placed the plate on the counter. Her voice lowered. What does he know? Ava wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. He said your real name isn't Martha Green. Martha's blood turned cold. Her real name, her real life, her real past. How could he know? Unless, no, impossible. It had been 40 years. But some monsters don't die. They just find different shadows to hide in. Ava cried harder. He said you used to live in another state with another family, and that something horrible happened. He said you ran away and changed your identity. Martha closed her eyes. That was true, every word. But how did he know? Ava whispered, Grandma, who were you before Martha Green? Martha took a long breath, steadying herself. She looked straight into her granddaughter's trembling eyes and said, My name was Margaret Hale. Ava froze. I changed it to protect myself and to protect the child I lost. Ava stepped back. Lost? Martha placed her trembling hand over Ava's, and with a haunting calmness she said, Ava, the man hunting you is the son of the monster I escaped. Ava's breath shattered. Our past, Martha whispered, voice cracking, has come back for revenge. But he doesn't know that I've been waiting 40 years to finish what began.
Ava stood frozen in the dim kitchen, her hands trembling against the sink edge. Margaret Hale, she whispered. Hearing her grandmother's real name felt like hearing a secret the world wasn't allowed to know. Margaret, looked older in that moment, but not weaker. Older like an ancient tree, full of rings, full of storms survived. Ava swallowed. What happened to you? Martha pulled out a chair and sat down slowly, the wooden legs creaking under the weight of 40 years of memory. Sit with me, Ava. You deserve the whole truth. Ava sat beside her, fingers intertwined like a child holding onto a lifeline. Martha stared at the flickering stove light. When I was your age, I wasn't safe either. Her voice dropped lower. There was a man named Douglas Hale, your blood relative, my husband. Ava's eyes widened. Your husband? A violent, cruel man. A man who believed he owned me, who believed fear was love. Martha's voice quivered only slightly. He kept me trapped for years, until one night I escaped. But I was pregnant. The child didn't survive the journey. Ava gasped softly, covering her mouth. I buried my old life. I changed my name, moved across states, and for decades I lived quietly. Ava's voice cracked. And the man following me, the one in the SUV, he's Douglas's son, Martha said coldly. From another woman he abused after I ran. Ava's breath hitched. But why is he after you, or me? Martha leaned back, her eyes sharp. Because Douglas died last year in prison, and before he died, he told his son the truth. He told him that the woman who ruined his life, the woman who escaped, is still alive. Ava whispered, He came to finish what his father started? No, Martha turned her voice to steel. He came to take revenge on me by taking you. Ava shook her head, tears forming again. But I barely know him. Why me? Because you're young, Martha answered.
because he learned all the ways his father controlled the women in his life, and because he thinks hurting you will break me. Ava collapsed into her grandmother's arms. I'm scared, Grandma. Martha stroked her back gently. I know, sweetheart, but you're not alone and you're not weak. Ava whispered through tears. He said he'd ruin your life if I told anyone. He even said he'd dig up your past. Martha chuckled bitterly. He thinks my past is my weakness, but he doesn't know it's my weapon. Ava pulled back slightly, confused. What do you mean? Martha's eyes grew darker, a kind of calm fury Ava had never seen before. If he wants to bring up what happened back then, she whispered, I'll make sure he regrets ever digging.
The next morning, they tried to live normally. Martha fed the chickens. Ava helped hang laundry on the line, but both kept glancing toward the road. At noon, they heard it again. The SUV, slow, predatory, circling. Ava froze, clutching the damp cloth in her hand. Martha stood tall on the porch, staring at the vehicle with unblinking eyes. Through the tinted window, a silhouette watched them. Ava whispered, Grandma, don't. But Martha stepped off the porch, walking straight toward the road, chin lifted. The SUV stopped. The window rolled down halfway. A man in his late 20s stared at her. Sharp jaw, cold eyes, a face full of arrogance inherited from the father Martha once escaped. So, he said with a smirk, you are Margaret Hale. Ava's breath caught in her throat. Martha didn't flinch. And you're Douglas Hale, Jr. He nodded proudly. I've been waiting to meet you. Martha replied calmly, your father taught you to fear strong women. That's why you're here. His smirk vanished. You took everything from him. You ran. You destroyed our family. Your father destroyed his own family. I survived. He leaned slightly out the window and whispered, and she will belong to me. Ava stumbled back, heart pounding. Martha stepped forward, eyes burning. You come near her again, her voice steady as a blade, and you'll learn why I survived your father. The SUV sped away, tires kicking dust across the field. Ava ran to Martha, shaking. Grandma, we should call the police. No, Martha said, gripping her shoulders gently. Not yet. Why not? He's dangerous. Sweetheart, Martha whispered, he has no criminal record, no charges, no witnesses. But if we go to the police now, he'll disappear before they even file paperwork, and he'll come back with a vengeance. Ava swallowed hard. So what do we do? Martha stared at the road where the SUV disappeared. We make him think, she dropped her voice to a chilling whisper, that he's hunting us. A beat. Then she finished, when in reality, we're hunting him. Inside her bedroom, Martha pulled out an old wooden chest from beneath her bed. Ava watched nervously. The box was heavy, carved with initials, M.H., Margaret Hale. Ava frowned. What's in there? Martha opened it. Inside was an old revolver, newspaper clippings, court documents, a stack of photographs, and a worn leather journal with pages sticking out. Ava stared, stunned. Grandma, what is all this?
Martha ran her hand over the items, like touching old scars. My life, she said quietly. The truth, the pain, the evidence. Ava picked up a newspaper clipping. Local woman escapes violent husband. Authorities search for missing Margaret Hale. Ava felt her legs weaken. Grandma, this is everything I needed to survive, Martha said, and everything we need now. Ava looked confused. But how will this help us with him? Martha looked up slowly. Because Douglas Jr. thinks he knows my history. She tapped the box. But he doesn't know what I kept. She closed the lid gently. This is how we end him. Ava's heart pounded. Grandma, what are you planning? Martha stood tall, the years falling off her like dust. I'm planning, she whispered, to do what I should have done to his father a long time ago. Ava swallowed hard. The grandmother she knew, soft, kind, gentle, was still there, but next to her stood someone else, a survivor, a strategist, a woman who had outrun the devil once and was ready to face his son.
That night, the farmhouse was silent except for the ticking of the old wall clock. Ava sat on the couch, hugging her knees, while Martha laid the contents of her wooden chest across the table. Old documents, photos, maps of a town from decades ago, a revolver with a worn handle. Ava watched anxiously. Grandma, why do you still have all these? Why didn't you get rid of them? Martha didn't lift her eyes. Because the past never stays buried, Ava. It waits. And someday you might need the proof to fight back. She unfolded a faded court document. This is the restraining order I filed against Douglas Hale in 1984. He violated it 10 times. The police ignored me. The judge dismissed half the cases. Ava frowned. That's horrible. Yes, Martha whispered, and now his son thinks he can do the same to you. Ava's breath hitched. But he doesn't know something important, Martha said, leaning back. What? That I learned from every mistake I made, and I will not make them again. Ava hesitated. Grandma, what exactly are you planning to do? Martha reached into her chest and pulled out a small metal box. Inside were a burner phone, a tiny digital voice recorder, a folded map of Hayfield, keys to an old storage unit, and a small flash drive. Ava stared in disbelief. Where did you get all this? Martha smiled gently. From a life before you were born. She spread the map across the table. There are 3 routes he uses to come to our home. She pointed with a pen. He always approaches from the west road. He circles the wheat field. He parks near the old oak tree. Ava blinked. You noticed all that? A woman who survived your grandfather always notices patterns. She circled the oak tree with her pen. This is where he thinks he's controlling the narrative, where he thinks he's hidden. Ava's voice trembled. So what do we do? Martha lowered her voice. We use his confidence against him.
The next morning, Martha awoke Ava before sunrise. Sweetheart, we have work to do. Ava rubbed her eyes. What kind of work? Martha handed her a pair of gloves and a small shovel. We're going outside. They walked quietly to the old oak tree near the dirt road, the one where Douglas Jr. always parked. Ava whispered nervously, "What are we doing here?" Martha knelt down and began digging a small hole near the roots. "This is where he feels safe," she said. "So this is where his downfall begins." She placed a tiny, waterproof case in the hole. Ava frowned. "What's inside?" "GPS tracker," Martha said, "and a voice recorder." Ava's eyes widened. "Grandma, that's kind of illegal." Martha smirked. "So is stalking a minor. So is intimidation. So is threatening a 79-year-old woman." Ava fell silent. Martha continued, "The law failed me once, but it won't fail you. Not if we gather enough proof." She covered the hole gently. "When he steps out of his car or walks near the tree, his voice, his threats will be recorded." Ava swallowed. "So this is our first trap?" "Yes," Martha said, brushing dirt off her hands, "and not the last." That afternoon, Ava was drawing in her room when she heard the familiar sound. An engine. Slow. Predatory. She ran to the window. The SUV was back. Ava's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Grandma," she whispered. Martha stepped beside her. "He's early." The SUV stopped right near the oak tree, exactly where they planted the recorder. Ava held her breath. Douglas Jr. stepped out. Tall, cold, arrogant. He walked toward the tree. Is he talking?" Ava whispered. Martha leaned closer. He was on the phone, pacing near the oak tree. Martha narrowed her eyes. Ava strained her ears, but they couldn't hear him from inside the house. But the recorder could. "What do you think he's saying?" Ava asked in a whisper. Martha's jaw tightened. "If he is anything like his father, he's threatening someone."
Douglas Jr. didn't drive away immediately this time. He stepped back into the SUV. Then a text message came to Ava's phone. Her hands shook as she opened it. Unknown number. You can't hide behind her forever. Ava's heart dropped. Then another. That evening, Martha grabbed her keys. "Ava, get your coat. We're going." Ava frowned. "Where?" "To the storage unit." The drive was silent, the sky turning purple as the sun set. They arrived at a row of metal storage units on the outskirts of town. Martha unlocked unit number 14. The heavy door rolled up. Inside were stacks of old boxes, a filing cabinet, a metal chest, a locked safe, and dusty evidence boards with names, dates, and photos. Ava gasped. "Grandma, what is this?" Martha stepped inside. "This is everything I gathered when I built the case against your grandfather. Every witness statement, every letter, every threat, every lie he told. Everything they ignored." Ava stepped closer, speechless. Martha turned to her. "And now, Ava?"
Her voice hardened like iron. "We are going to build a case against his son." Ava stared at her grandmother, not afraid, but awed. "Grandma, you're incredible." Martha shook her head. "No, sweetheart. I'm just a woman who refuses to let history repeat itself." Ava whispered, "So what's our next move?" Martha opened the safe. Inside was a folder labeled Douglas Hale, Legacy of Violence. Martha handed it to Ava. "We are going to destroy the last piece of that legacy." A beat. Then Martha said the words that set the revenge in motion. "Ava, it's time for him to become the hunted." Ava held the folder labeled Douglas Hale, Legacy of Violence with trembling hands. What is inside this?" Martha exhaled slowly, as if preparing herself to revisit a grave she buried long ago. "Everything the world refused to believe," she said quietly. "My records, his crimes, the truth." Ava opened it gently. Inside were photos of bruises, hospital reports, police notes with words scribbled like lack of evidence, a doctor's report describing a miscarriage, witness statements from neighbors, a restraining order with Douglas Hale's signature, and a handwritten letter full of threats. Ava's eyes welled with tears. "Grandma, you went through all this alone?" Martha placed a hand on her shoulder. "I survived it, and now I will make sure you don't have to survive what I did." Ava looked up, her voice breaking. "How did you escape him?" Martha paused. "I didn't escape. I outsmarted him. And now," she pointed to the folder, "these documents will expose his son, too. Their sickness, their legacy." Ava swallowed hard. "Then what's our next move?" Martha gave a small, grim smile. "We make him reveal his true self publicly, and we trap him in his own arrogance." The next morning, Martha took Ava to the town market, trying to restore a sense of normalcy. But normalcy was gone. As they walked past the fruit stands, Martha sensed something, a shadow, a presence. She turned around slowly. Douglas Jr. was standing across the street, not hiding, not pretending, staring straight at them with a smile carved from his father's darkness. Ava gasped. "Grandma!" "Don't look away," Martha whispered. "He wants fear. Don't give it to him." Douglas crossed the street slowly, hands in his pockets. "Morning, Margaret." The name dripped from his mouth like poison. Ava stepped backward instinctively. Martha remained still. "How dare you come here?" she asked calmly. He smirked. "This is a public place. I'm not doing anything wrong." "You're stalking a minor." He shrugged. "No proof." Martha narrowed her eyes. He didn't know she had already started gathering proof. Ava mustered courage. "Stay away from us." Douglas leaned close to her, too close, until Martha stepped between them. "You touch her again," Martha said quietly, "and I will end you." Douglas chuckled. "You ended my father's life? Isn't that enough revenge?" Martha's jaw tightened. "He ended his own life." Douglas leaned in, whispering, "And I'm going to take yours, piece by piece." Ava's breath hitched.
Martha didn't blink. You're just like him, and just like him, you will fall. Douglas smirked and walked away, but not before turning back and saying, I'll see you tonight. Ava's face drained of color. Grandma, what does he mean? Martha lifted her chin. He thinks fear is a weapon, but fear is how you predict a monster's next move.
Back home, Martha locked every door and window. They sat at the kitchen table, the tension thick enough to taste. Grandma, he said tonight, what if... Martha raised a hand gently. Sweetheart, listen to me. Ava waited, eyes wide. That man doesn't want to kill anyone. Not yet. Ava frowned. What do you mean? He wants control. He wants fear. He wants you to feel helpless, the same way his father made me feel. Ava clenched her fists. I won't let him ruin our life. And I won't let him touch you, Martha said. But we must be one step ahead. She opened her phone. On the burner line. She played the audio recorded from the oak tree. Douglas Jr.'s voice came through muffled. I'll handle the girl. Tonight, she won't defy me again. Ava froze. Martha pressed pause. This is what we need, she said. Proof of intent. Ava shivered. But he's coming here tonight. Martha's expression hardened. Yes. She stood up and grabbed the revolver from the wooden chest. Ava's breath cracked. Grandma, are you going to fight him? Martha checked the chamber. Old, but functional. No, not unless I have to. Then what's the plan? Martha looked out the window toward the road. The plan is to make him believe we're scared, hiding, vulnerable. Ava blinked. But we're not. No, sweetheart. She placed a hand on Ava's cheek. We're prepared. At sunset, Ava's phone buzzed. Her heart leapt as she checked the screen. Unknown number. Martha nodded. Answer. Put it on speaker. Ava's fingers trembled as she tapped the call. Hello, she whispered. Douglas Jr.'s voice was oily, confident, in control. Little Ava, are you home? Ava couldn't speak. Martha mouthed. Yes. Yes, Ava said shakily. Good, because I'm close. Ava's breath hitched. Martha didn't react. And your grandmother? Douglas asked. Is she ready to face the truth? Martha leaned forward. What truth? Douglas chuckled. The truth that this family belongs to us. What my father started, I'll finish. Martha's expression sharpened like a knife. Douglas lowered his voice. I'll be there soon. A pause. Don't try anything stupid. The call ended. Ava collapsed into a chair. Grandma, what do we do? He's coming here. Martha put her hand over Ava's shaking hands. Sweetheart, tonight is the night everything changes. Martha led Ava to the attic. Dusty, dark, full of old memories. Why are we here? Ava whispered. Martha pointed to a small window overlooking the road. This is where you'll hide. Ava's eyes filled with fear. No, I'm not leaving you alone. Martha cupped her face gently. You won't leave me. You'll watch. You'll record everything he says, everything he does.
But what about you? Martha gave her a steady look. I will meet him not as Martha Green, but as Margaret Hale. Ava's breath cracked. Grandma! Martha kissed her forehead. You're the reason I survived him. You're the reason I'm brave. Ava hugged her tightly as if it might be the last time. Martha held her close. When this is over, you'll never fear another man in your life. I promise you. Ava climbed into the attic's shadow. Martha closed the door gently. And then, knock, knock, knock. Ava's blood ran cold. Douglas Jr. had arrived.
Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the old farmhouse like a death sentence. Ava held her breath in the attic, her phone camera pointed toward the front yard through the small window. Her hands shook so hard she had to hold the phone with both hands. Below her, Martha walked to the door with calm, steady steps. She didn't tremble. She didn't hesitate. When she opened the door, Douglas Jr. stood there, tall, confident, hands in his pockets, a smirk carved into his face like he owned the world. "Good evening, Margaret," he said softly. Martha's voice was cold steel. "You don't have permission to be here." He shrugged casually. "I don't need permission. I just came to collect what's mine." Martha raised an eyebrow. And what exactly do you think that is?" He leaned in slightly. "The girl, Ava. She's coming with me." Ava nearly screamed from the attic. Her hand covered her mouth to remain silent. Martha stayed still. "She doesn't belong to you. She never did." Douglas smirked. "Your husband said you used to be more obedient." Martha's heart clenched, but she didn't show a single flicker of emotion. Instead, she stepped forward. "You are nothing like your father. You're weaker than he ever was." Douglas's face twitched, the first crack in his confidence.
From the attic window, Ava recorded the entire exchange. Douglas stepped closer to Martha. "You've poisoned her against me," he snarled. "No," Martha replied. "You've revealed yourself." He gritted his teeth. "I'm not leaving without her." Martha held her ground. "I'm not letting you take her." Douglas leaned close enough that Ava could see his breath from above. Then he whispered, "I know what you did. I know how you escaped my father. I know the lies you told, and I'll expose you." Martha didn't blink. "Yes," she said, "you will. And I want you to." Douglas stepped back, confused. "What?" Martha folded her arms. "Go ahead. Tell everyone. Tell the police I was abused. Tell them your father was a criminal." Douglas froze, realizing the trap. Ava zoomed in from the attic, capturing every second. Martha finished. "Because the moment you open your mouth, I open mine." She lifted her chin. "And I have proof. Proof of everything. Proof of your father, and now proof of you." Douglas's jaw tightened. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," she whispered. Douglas took one step closer, lowering his voice so only Martha could hear, or so he thought. But Ava caught every word from the attic. "You think hiding behind the past will save you?" Douglas hissed. "You think your little farm will protect you?" Martha stared up at him. "You're not here for Ava," she said quietly. You're here to finish your father's battle." Douglas smiled slowly. "And what a beautiful opportunity it is. You're weak now, old, alone." Martha's eyes darkened. "I'm not alone." Douglas scoffed. "You think anyone will believe you? You think you can fight me?" Martha whispered, "I already am." Douglas stepped back, sizing her up like prey. Then he said the words that made Ava's blood run cold. "Maybe I should burn this place down, start with your memories, then take the girl." Ava nearly dropped her phone. Martha's voice snapped like a whip. "Do it! Just give me the excuse." Douglas froze again. This wasn't the reaction he expected. Martha leaned forward. "Cowards like you always need fear, but you don't scare me." Her voice sharpened. "And you cannot control what you don't scare." Douglas clenched his fists. "You'll regret this." "No," Martha answered softly. "You will."
Douglas took a breath, long, deep, as if trying to regain dominance. Then he stepped even closer, his voice low and threatening. "If you get in my way, I swear, Margaret, I will lay you next to your daughter." Ava's scream choked in her throat as she recorded. Martha's face changed, the quiet grief of a woman who had buried her child. She whispered, "You leave my daughter's memory out of your mouth." Douglas laughed. "I control the girl now," he said. "She listens to me." Martha replied softly, "You haven't learned anything about me." Douglas raised an eyebrow. "Such as?" Martha stepped forward until her face was inches from his. "I always win." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Douglas's expression. This old woman, the one he expected to be trembling, was not afraid of him, not even a little.
Just then, headlights appeared down the road. Douglas turned sharply. A pickup truck pulled into the property. It was Tom Jenkins, their neighbor, mid-40s, strong build, weathered face, a man who minded his business but cared deeply about Martha. Douglas stepped back quickly. Tom rolled down his window. "Martha, everything okay?" Douglas stiffened. Martha smiled. "Yes, Tom, everything is fine. This man was just leaving." Douglas glared at her. Tom stared at Douglas with narrowed eyes. Didn't look like he was invited. Martha kept her gaze locked on Douglas. No, he wasn't. Douglas clenched his jaw. He knew he couldn't escalate with another witness present. He stepped backward toward his SUV. "This isn't over," he hissed. Martha replied, "It ends soon." He climbed into his car and sped off, tires tearing the gravel. Ava collapsed in relief in the attic, hands shaking. Tom stepped out of his truck. "Martha, who was that man?" Martha steadied herself. "Tom, I need your help." Tom nodded instantly. "Anything." Martha's voice turned serious. "That man is dangerous. He's after Ava, and I'm going to stop him." Tom blinked. "Martha, are you sure you want to handle this alone?" She shook her head. "I'm done being alone." Later, after Tom left, Martha found Ava in the attic. The girl rushed forward, hugging her tightly. Grandma, I was so scared. It's over for tonight, Martha said softly, stroking her hair. But it isn't finished. Ava pulled back. Grandma, I recorded everything, every threat, every word. Martha smiled, sad, proud, determined. Good. That recording might save us. Ava wiped her eyes. What now? Martha inhaled slowly. Now we prepare. Ava whispered. For what? Martha looked out the attic window at the long, dark road.
The sun rose slowly over the fields, painting the farmhouse in pale gold. But inside, neither Martha nor Ava slept. Ava sat at the kitchen table, sipping cold tea with shaking hands. Martha stood by the window, watching the road as if expecting Douglas Jr. to appear again. He didn't. The silence felt even worse. Ava whispered, "Grandma, do you think he'll come back today?" Martha answered without turning from the window. "He won't come in daylight. Predators like him want darkness." Ava swallowed hard. "So what do we do until then?" Martha finally turned to her, face calm but fierce. "We get ahead of him."
Around noon, a cruiser rolled up the driveway. Sheriff Dalton, a heavy-set man in his 50s who had known Martha for years, stepped out. Martha? Ava? Everything all right? Martha exchanged a look with Ava before stepping onto the porch. Sheriff Dalton sighed. Got a call this morning. Someone reported a suspicious SUV near the school last night. Ava's fingers tightened around her cup. Martha kept her face steady. Sheriff, there's a man harassing my granddaughter. Dalton frowned. You got a name? Douglas Hale, Jr. Dalton nearly choked on air. Hale? As in Douglas Hale? The one we had on file a long time ago? Martha nodded. Dalton shifted uncomfortably. Martha, that family is trouble. You need to let us handle this. Martha stepped closer, voice calm but cutting. I tried that once, Sheriff. Dalton swallowed. Ava whispered, We have recordings. Dalton glanced between them. Recordings of what? Martha's voice sharpened. Threats? Stalking? Admitting he's coming after Ava. Dalton's face tightened. Let me hear it. Martha shook her head. Not yet. Not until we have the full picture. Dalton looked frustrated. Martha, this is dangerous. I know, Martha replied. That's why I'm being careful. Dalton sighed, rubbing his forehead. You call me the moment he shows up again, understand? Martha forced a polite smile. We will. But as the sheriff drove away, Ava whispered, Grandma, why didn't we give him the recording? Martha's eyes hardened. Because once the police get involved, Douglas will run. And if he runs, she looked toward the horizon, he'll come back stronger. Ava shivered. So we need more proof? We need a confession. Something undeniable, something he can't talk his way out of. Ava felt her chest tighten. Grandma, how do we get that? Grandma glanced toward the barn. We make him think he's winning. In the barn, Martha pulled out old tools, ropes, a ladder, and a set of motion sensor lights she hadn't used since the storm of 2009. Ava watched nervously. "Grandma, what is all this?" Martha set the ladder down and pulled out a small black device. "A camera," she said. "Night vision. Motion triggered." Ava blinked. "You have security cameras?" Martha smirked. "I bought them years ago. Never needed them. Until now." She climbed the ladder and installed one under the overhang of the barn roof, then another near the chicken coop, another facing the porch, and another near the oak tree. Ava's jaw dropped. "Grandma, this is like a movie." Martha climbed down and dusted her hands. "No, sweetheart, this is survival." Ava pointed to the barn. "What about inside?" Martha walked into the barn's shadow, lifting a tarp to reveal a small radio transmitter, a backup generator, and a metal hook suspended from a beam. Ava's eyes widened. "Grandma, what is this?" Martha lowered the hook. "It's a message." "To who?" Martha's eyes went cold. "To Douglas. If he steps into my barn, he'll learn he's not the hunter here." Ava swallowed hard. "What else do we need?" Martha walked toward the house. "Something he wants. Something that will bring him right to us." Ava frowned. "What does he want?" Martha stopped. "Control," she whispered. "He wants to prove he's stronger than us. So we give him the illusion of power, and then we take everything from him." Ava felt a chill travel up her spine. Her grandmother wasn't just planning self-defense. She was planning revenge. That evening, Ava sat on the porch swing, staring at the horizon. Her hands were cold despite the heat. Martha came outside with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "You're shaking," she said softly. Ava nodded. "I keep hearing his voice. The things he said, the things he threatened." Martha placed a warm hand over Ava's. "I know you're scared." Ava's voice cracked. "I don't want him to hurt you, Grandma." Martha smiled, sad and brave. "He can't hurt me anymore, Ava. I'm not the woman he thinks I am." Ava buried her face in Martha's shoulder. "I'm tired of being scared." Martha stroked her hair. "You won't be scared forever. Fear will become strength. I'll teach you." Ava wiped her tears. "How?" Martha looked out at the darkening field. "By showing you the truth about your grandfather, about their family, about the darkness they passed down." Ava hesitated. Why didn't you ever tell me all of this before?" Martha exhaled. "Because some stories are too heavy for a child. But you're not a child anymore." Ava nodded slowly. "So, what's next?" Martha's eyes sharpened. "We wait." The night settled over the farmhouse like a blanket of shadows. Crickets chirped. Wind whispered through the trees. And then, crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Ava stiffened in her bed. She sat up, heart hammering. Downstairs, Martha's eyes snapped open. She slid out of bed silently and reached for the revolver. Ava texted quietly. "Grandma, did you hear that?" Her phone vibrated almost instantly. "Martha, stay in your room." Ava slowly peeked through her window. A dark silhouette walked across the yard, straight toward the barn. Ava's voice caught in her throat. "Oh my God!" She recorded everything. Douglas Jr. moved toward the barn door, unaware of the camera hidden above him. He pushed the door open. Inside, it was almost pitch black. He stepped forward. Click. A motion-triggered light flooded the barn with white brightness. Douglas stumbled, shielding his eyes. Ava gasped softly from upstairs as she filmed. Douglas looked around, confused and angry. What the hell? And then he saw it. Hanging in the center of the barn, the metal hook, swinging slightly. Martha stepped out from behind a stack of hay bales, calm, unshaken. Douglas stared at her. "You knew I was coming." "Yes," Martha said. "And now I want you to listen." Douglas sneered. "I don't listen to old." "Shut up," Martha snapped. Douglas froze, startled by her tone. Martha stepped forward slowly, like a predator closing in. "Do you know what that hook is?" she asked quietly. Douglas looked confused. Martha reached up and stopped it from swinging. "My late husband used that hook to store deer carcasses. It held hundreds of pounds of dead weight." Douglas swallowed. "And I kept it," Martha continued, "because I always knew one day I'd need to hang a different kind of predator." Douglas stepped back, face tightening. "This isn't funny." "No," Martha said. "It's justice." The barn door slammed shut behind him. Ava nearly dropped her phone. The barn door slammed shut behind Douglas Jr., the echo bouncing off the wooden walls like a warning. Ava, from her upstairs window, recorded everything with wide, terrified eyes. Inside the barn, Douglas spun around. "Open that door," he snapped. Martha didn't move. "It locks from the outside," she said calmly. His face twisted. "You think this scares me?" "No," Martha replied. "I think it confuses you. Men like you don't do well when they aren't in control." Douglas scoffed, but his eyes darted nervously around the barn. Martha stepped forward, her voice low. "Before you do something stupid, know this barn better than your father ever did." Douglas glared. "My father was a strong man." "Your father was a monster," Martha corrected. "And you're walking in his footsteps." The insult cut through him. He lunged toward her. Martha lifted the revolver instantly. Douglas stopped dead in his tracks. Ava nearly screamed. Douglas raised his hands slowly. "So that's your plan. Shoot me? Go ahead. Kill me like you killed him." Marta's finger rested near the trigger, but she didn't flinch. "I didn't kill your father," she said quietly. "He killed himself with his own violence." Douglas smiled coldly, funny, because he told me a very different story. Marta's jaw clenched, but her voice stayed steady. "He lied, and you believed him." A long silence. Douglas stepped back, pacing. "You know what I think?" he growled. "I think you're bluffing. You don't have the guts to shoot." Marta lowered the gun a fraction, eyes narrowed. "That's where you're wrong, boy." Her voice hardened. "I have nothing left to lose." For the first time since entering the barn, Douglas looked genuinely uncertain. Martha took a deep breath and slowly lowered the revolver to her side, not in surrender, but in confidence. "I don't need to shoot you," she said. "You're going to destroy yourself." Douglas scoffed. "I doubt it."
Martha turned slightly, gesturing toward the small black device sitting on the feed barrel. "Do you know what that is?" she asked. Douglas squinted. "A radio? A phone?" "A live transmitter," Martha said. "Everything you said outside the house, everyone heard it." Douglas tensed. "Liar." Martha smiled. "You threatened to burn my home. You threatened to take Ava. You threatened my life. Do you think anyone will believe you're innocent now?" Douglas's breathing became uneven. "Turn it off," he snapped. "No," Martha replied. "You wanted an audience. Now you have one." Ava recorded all of this, her heart pounding. Douglas's composure was slipping. His breathing quickened. His voice cracked. "Does Ava know? All the terrible things your husband said about you?" Martha stepped closer. "Everything your father ever said was a lie, just like everything you're saying now." Douglas swallowed, caught between fury and fear. Douglas suddenly laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh. "You know what I really want?" he asked, leaning forward. Martha didn't blink. "I want her," he said. "I want Ava. I want to finish what my father started. She belongs to our bloodline." Ava covered her mouth not to scream. Martha's eyes flashed with pure, cold anger. "Your father didn't start anything," she spat. "He terrorized women. He destroyed families. And now you want to wear his sickness like a crown." Douglas grinned. "You can't stop me." Martha leaned in, whispering, "I already have." Douglas blinked in confusion. Martha stepped back and gestured to the corner of the barn. Douglas frowned. "What is that?" Martha didn't smile, but her voice grew sharper. "A pressure alarm," she said. "The moment you walked through that door, every camera on this property started recording." Douglas's eyes widened. "You're bluffing." "No," Martha said calmly. "I'm tired of bluffing. I'm tired of pretending I'm old and harmless. Tonight, I show you who I really am." Douglas's bravado crumbled. "What do you want?" he asked, voice unsteady. "A confession," Martha said. "On camera, in your own words." Douglas laughed weakly. "And why would I confess?" Martha lifted the folder labeled "Legacy of Violence." Douglas froze. "You know what this is. All your father's crimes, the things he admitted, the things he hid." Douglas stepped back slowly. "You think you can threaten me with that?" Martha's voice cut through the barn. "No, Douglas, I'm not threatening you. I'm showing you that your past, your family's past, is about to swallow you." Suddenly, bang! The barn door burst open from outside. Ava gasped. Martha froze. Douglas spun around. Tom Jenkins stormed in with a flashlight and a metal pipe. "Martha, are you all right?" Douglas snarled. "Oh, perfect. A hero." Tom stepped between Martha and Douglas. "You've got 2 seconds to step away from her." Douglas raised his hands mockingly. "Careful, farmer boy. I don't want to hurt you." Tom swung the pipe lightly in his hand. "You can try."
Ava filmed everything, heart pounding so loud she could hear it. Douglas glanced between Martha and Tom, suddenly outnumbered. His confidence flickered. His voice cracked. "This isn't over," he hissed. Martha replied quietly, "It ends when I decide it ends." Douglas stormed out of the barn, slamming the door. Ava nearly collapsed with relief. Tom turned to Martha. "Martha, what have you gotten yourself into?" Martha finally looked tired, truly tired for the first time that night. "Something I should have finished 40 years ago," she whispered. Tom lowered the pipe, concerned. "What do we do now?" Martha straightened slowly. "We prepare for the moment he makes his final mistake."
The dust in the barn settled slowly as Tom lowered the metal pipe. Martha steadied herself against a support beam, her breath trembling. Ava rushed down from the house, phone in hand. "Grandma, are you okay?" she cried, wrapping her arms around Martha. Martha nodded, but the exhaustion in her eyes betrayed the truth. Tom placed a firm, comforting hand on Martha's shoulder. "You can't keep doing this alone," he said quietly. "He's not going to stop." Martha stared at the barn door, her voice low and deadly calm. "I know." Ava looked between them anxiously. "What do we do now?" Martha exhaled deeply. "Now, we get ahead of him, because next time he won't come alone, and he won't come to talk." Ava shivered.
Back in the kitchen, Martha sat with Ava and Tom, the folder labeled Legacy of Violence open on the table. Ava hesitated. "Grandma, what exactly is in that file?" Martha's voice softened. "Everything." She opened the folder to a faded photograph, Douglas Hale Sr., her late husband. Ava's breath caught. Tom leaned forward. "Martha, you kept all this?" "I tried to hand it to the police years ago," Martha said quietly. "They were too afraid, too connected, too bought off by the Hale family." Ava stared at the pictures, bruises, hospital reports, police statements that were never filed. "Grandma, why didn't you ever tell me?" Martha brushed a strand of Ava's hair gently. "I didn't want your childhood to be built on darkness." Ava's voice broke, "But it still found me." Martha closed her eyes. "That's why I won't let it take you, too." Tom clenched his fists. "That man is carrying his father's evil like a badge." "Yes," Martha said, "and he hides behind the Hale name because he thinks it makes him untouchable." Ava whispered, trembling, "But why me? Why does he want me?" Martha's voice went cold. "Because his father wanted me, and I escaped. He thinks taking you will finish the revenge his father never got." Ava stared in horror. Tom slammed his fist on the table. "He's sick." Martha nodded. "And men like him don't stop unless someone stops them." Ava looked into her grandmother's eyes, suddenly understanding. "You're planning something, aren't you?" Martha didn't answer. She didn't have to. Tom stood and paced the room, frustration boiling in his eyes. "Martha, I want to help you, but you can't fight him alone. We need the sheriff. We need backup." Martha shook her head. "Dalton won't act without undeniable proof, and Douglas knows how to hide his tracks." Tom groaned.
Then what? We just wait for him to attack again? Martha looked at him steadily. No, we make him think he's winning. Tom blinked. And how do we do that? Martha gave a tired smile. By letting him walk into a trap of his own making. Ava looked terrified. Grandma, that's dangerous. Martha cupped Ava's face in her hands. Sweetheart, everything worth protecting is dangerous. Ava swallowed hard. But what if he hurts you? Martha's voice softened. He already hurt me 40 years ago. This time, I hurt him back. Tom looked between them, conflicted. I'll stand with you, he said. Whatever you decide. Martha nodded gratefully. Thank you, Tom. But when the time comes, stand behind me, not in front. Tom frowned. Martha, she held up a hand. I'm not losing anyone else because of that family. Tom reluctantly agreed.
Inside the house, Tom's phone buzzed. He frowned. Unknown number. He answered. Hello? A voice, cold, male, controlled, slipped through the line. Douglas Jenkins. Tom froze. Douglas, you should stay out of things that don't concern you, Douglas said calmly. You have a farm, a family. Be smart. Tom's eyes narrowed. You don't scare me. Douglas chuckled. You should be scared for them, not yourself. Tom's blood ran cold. You come near my family and you'll what? Douglas said softly. You think you're the hero? You're nothing. Tom clenched his jaw. Stay away from Martha. Stay away from Ava. Douglas's tone shifted, darker, colder. You can't protect them from me, not when they're already dead. Tom felt his chest seize. You listen to me. The call clicked dead.
Tom stormed into the living room where Martha and Ava were sitting. His face was pale. Martha, he called me. Ava's breath hitched. Martha's eyes sharpened. What did he say? Tom swallowed. He threatened my family. He said you're already dead. Ava burst into tears. Martha closed her eyes slowly. Then she inhaled, deep and steady. It's time. Tom blinked. Time for what? Martha stood, the weight of 40 years of trauma turning into steel in her spine. For me to finish what your grandfather started, she whispered. But this time, on my terms. Ava stepped forward. Grandma, what are you going to do? Martha looked at them both with a calm, chilling certainty. I'm going to end the Hale bloodline. The room fell silent. The living room felt unnervingly silent after Martha's final words. Ava stared at her grandmother, terrified, yet unable to look away. Grandma, what do you mean, end the Hale bloodline? Martha sat down slowly, hands folded together. I mean, I won't let Douglas become what his father was. I won't let him destroy you, or anyone else. Tom paced the room. Martha, you're talking about going after him. That's dangerous. Martha nodded. I know. Ava's voice trembled. What are you planning? Martha looked at her granddaughter gently. Nothing illegal, but everything he's done, it's going to return to him. Ava frowned. How? Martha took a deep breath. By using the one thing he fears most. Tom raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Martha answered, the truth and the consequences of it.
Across town, Douglas Jr. sat in his dark apartment, lights off, curtains drawn, his face illuminated only by the glow of computer screens, surveillance photos, printed screenshots, maps of Martha's property. He clenched his jaw, the anger simmering beneath his skin like boiling tar. "She thinks she can trap me?" he muttered. He played the recording of himself in the barn. His threats echoed back at him. "This woman." Douglas slammed his fist on the table, making the screens shake. Then he grabbed his phone, dialing a number labeled RH. A man answered. "What do you want?" Douglas exhaled shakily. "I need your help. Tonight." The man sighed. "I told you before, I don't want to get involved with your family's mess." Douglas growled. "You owe me, and this time we finish it." A long silence. The man finally whispered, "Fine, but this is the last time." Douglas smirked. "Good. Bring everything." He hung up the phone. His eyes narrowed. "Margaret, I'll see you soon."
Back at the sheriff's department, Dalton looked over the report from earlier that day. Douglas Hale, Jr. Suspicious presence near school. Previous disturbance reported near Martha's property. Dalton frowned. Why would a Hale be sniffing around an old family farm? He typed into the database, pulling up the old case file from decades ago. The original Hale case, the one that was never officially closed. Bruises, injuries, statements that mysteriously went missing. Dalton muttered, I knew something wasn't right. He picked up the phone. "Dispatch, patch me through to Martha Schumacher." But the line didn't ring. The call failed. Dalton's brows furrowed. That's strange. He tried again. Failed. Dalton stood quickly, grabbing his keys. "I need to see her. Something's wrong." He left immediately. Inside the farmhouse kitchen, Martha spread out a map of the property. Lines, arrows, camera locations, blind spots, escape routes. Ava stared at it. "Grandma, you drew all this?" Martha nodded. "I've known this land longer than Douglas has been alive. I know every hole, every shadow, every trick." Tom leaned over the map. "And what's this area here?" he asked, pointing to a circled area near the orchard. "That," Martha said, "is where Douglas will enter if he thinks he's sneaking up on us." Ava frowned. "How do you know?" Martha looked her in the eyes. "Because he's arrogant. He'll avoid the barn after tonight. He'll look for a weakness, and that's where I'll be waiting." Tom shook his head. "This is dangerous." Martha met his gaze. "So is doing nothing." Ava grabbed Martha's hand. "Grandma, he called Tom. He threatened you. We should leave. Call the police. Something." Martha squeezed her hand gently. "I'm done running, Ava." A long silence settled. Later that night, Martha carried a shovel out behind the barn. Ava followed slowly. "Grandma, what are you doing?" Martha knelt down beside a small, weathered metal box buried beneath the soil. She dug it out, her hands steady. Ava watched nervously. Martha opened the old box. Inside were Polaroid photos, letters, a cassette tape, a blood-stained handkerchief, a small key, and a page labeled "Confession, Do Not Destroy." Ava gasped softly. "Grandma, what is all this?" Martha stared down at the items. "This is why your grandfather hated me," she whispered. "This is why he tried to break me, why he threatened my life." Ava's eyes widened. "Grandma, this is evidence." "Yes," Martha said, "the evidence he never wanted the world to see." Ava touched the cassette. "Is this his confession?" Martha nodded. "And Douglas knows it exists." Ava's breath caught. "So he's not after us. He's after this." Martha closed the box. "He wants to destroy his father's sins. I want to expose them." She set the box aside. "And this is how we end him." Ava looked terrified. "Grandma, if he finds out you have this—" Martha interrupted gently. "He already knows." Ava shook with fear. "Then he's coming." Martha nodded. "Yes, and he'll come tonight."
Across town, Douglas loaded the trunk of his SUV. A crowbar, a coil of rope, a black mask, a flashlight, bolt cutters, something wrapped in cloth, a small fuel can. He closed the trunk with a smirk. "Let's finish this." He got into the car. Engine roared. Tires tore across the road toward Martha's farm. Back in the farmhouse, Martha locked the windows, checked the revolver, checked the cameras, checked the motion lights. Everything was prepared. Tom stood at the doorway. "Martha, I'm staying. I'm not leaving you two alone." Martha shook her head. "No, Tom, you go home. He threatened your family. They need you." Tom clenched his jaw. "But—" "Go," Martha said softly. Tom hesitated. "Promise me you'll call if things get bad." Martha nodded. "I promise." He left reluctantly. Ava joined Martha in the kitchen. "Grandma, I'm scared." Martha hugged her tightly. "Sweetheart, listen to me. I won't let anything happen to you." Ava nodded against her shoulder. Martha whispered, "Tonight, we finish it." Sheriff Dalton's cruiser pulled onto the dark road leading to the farmhouse. He noticed fresh tire tracks, deep, fast. His stomach dropped. Oh no. He sped forward, lights off, car silent. He stepped out carefully, scanning the property. The air felt wrong, still, heavy. Dalton whispered, "Please be inside. Please be safe." He walked toward the porch, but a noise behind him made him freeze. A twig snapped. Dalton turned slowly. His jaw tensed. Oh, hell. A dark figure moved through the orchard. Slow, deliberate, hunting. Douglas. He whispered into the night, "Ava, Martha, I'm coming." A glint of steel cut the moonlight. He was closer now. Too close. Ava and Martha waited inside the house as the first shadow crossed the yard. Martha whispered, "It's time."
Ava grabbed her hand. "Please, be careful." Martha nodded, picking up the metal box. "I will be." From outside, crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Douglas was here. His voice cut through the silence. "Margaret, I know you're awake." Ava's hand shook. Martha whispered, "This ends tonight." The farmhouse sat in total stillness, lit only by the soft glow of a single kitchen lamp. Ava clutched Martha's arm tightly, her breath trembling. Outside, Douglas's voice echoed through the night. "Margaret, come out! Don't make me drag you!" Martha didn't move. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself. Ava whispered, "Grandma, he's right outside." Martha's voice was calm, almost eerily so. Let him talk. Men like him revealed their weaknesses with every word. A long silence. Then, thud, thud, thud. Douglas pounded on the front door. Ava jumped. Martha didn't even flinch. Out by the orchard, Sheriff Dalton crouched behind a tree, gripping his flashlight and hand radio. He whispered into it, "Dispatch, this is Dalton. I'm on site at Schumacher Farm. I've got a hostile individual." The radio crackled, but no answer came. Dalton cursed under his breath. Dead zones. Always dead zones. He peeked around the tree. He saw Douglas stalking up the porch steps. Dalton's hand tightened around the flashlight. "This ends tonight," he muttered. He stepped forward. A figure suddenly blocked his path. Dalton nearly swung the flashlight in panic. "Whoa, Sheriff," the man said calmly. It was R.H., the man Douglas had called earlier. Dalton frowned deeply. "You're one of his?" he asked. The man didn't speak. He only lifted a crowbar. Dalton braced himself. The man rushed him. Dalton dodged narrowly, the crowbar smashing into the tree bark. Dalton swung the flashlight hard into the man's ribs. R.H. grunted, but didn't fall. They grappled violently, rolling across the dirt. Dalton gasped, "You're helping the Hales? You know what they did." R.H. punched him hard in the side of the face. "Just following orders," he growled. Dalton fought back with desperation, years of training and instinct firing at once. He finally shoved the man off and scrambled up, but R.H. grabbed his ankle, yanking him back down. Dalton landed hard. The crowbar raised. Ava saw none of this. Martha sensed all of it. Inside the house, Ava and Martha heard it. Crack. The sharp sound of glass shattering. Douglas had smashed the window beside the door. Martha pulled Ava toward the hallway. "Ava, go to the back room. Lock the door." Ava shook her head violently. "No, I'm staying with you." Martha grabbed her chin, forcing Ava to look her in the eyes. "Listen to me. I'm not asking. I'm telling you." Ava's breath shook. "Grandma, I need you safe. That's the only way I can fight." Ava hesitated, then nodded. She ran toward the back of the house. Martha turned toward the broken window. Douglas's hand reached through, undoing the latch. Martha whispered to herself, "It's time." The window swung open violently. Douglas slid through like a shadow, landing heavily on the kitchen floor. Martha stood in the hallway, holding the metal box in one hand and the revolver piece hidden under her shawl. Douglas smirked when he saw her. "There you are." Martha stood firm. "You shouldn't be here, Douglas." He stepped closer. "You have something that belongs to my family." Martha held up the metal box. "You mean the truth?" His jaw twitched. "Give it to me." Martha shook her head slowly. "No." Douglas's eyes darkened. "Then I'll take it." He lunged toward her. Martha stepped back, but suddenly froze. Her eyes widened, not at Douglas, but behind him, because the back door had opened.
Ava, panicking, had tried to sneak around the back of the house to call for help. But instead, she stepped right into Douglas's line of sight. Douglas turned sharply, his expression twisted into triumph. Well, look who finally came out. Ava froze like a deer in headlights. Martha's voice cracked. "Ava, don't move." Douglas laughed softly. "You really thought I'd let you hide forever?" He stepped toward Ava. Ava backed up until her spine hit the doorframe. Douglas reached into his pocket, and Martha's blood ran cold. "Ava, run!" Ava sprinted down the hallway. Douglas chased her. Martha ran after them both. Back outside, Sheriff Dalton managed to elbow RH in the throat, giving him just enough space to grab a fallen branch. He swung it hard across the man's shoulders, knocking him down. Dalton stumbled away, breath ragged. He saw the house, he saw the open door, and he ran toward it. "Martha! Ava!" Inside, Ava darted into the pantry and slammed the door. Douglas reached it a second later. "Ava, open this door!" Ava pressed her hand over her own mouth, trying not to sob. Douglas began to break through the thin wood panel. Martha stepped into the hallway. "Douglas, I'm right here." He stopped, turned. His eyes gleamed. "Give me the box," he growled. Martha lifted it. "You want it?" Douglas nodded slowly. "Yes." Martha stepped backward toward the living room. "Then come and take it." Douglas smirked. "Gladly." He followed her. Ava pushed the pantry door back in place. Dalton stumbled into the house just as Douglas disappeared around the corner. Dalton shouted, "Martha, where are you?" Martha appeared at the far end of the living room. Dalton's eyes widened. "Martha, don't!" Douglas lunged, but Martha didn't run. She dropped the metal box to the floor. Douglas stopped instantly. There was a click. A red light blinked on the underside of the box. Douglas rose. What did you do?" Martha's voice was low and lethal. "Every camera on this property is recording. This box has a GPS tracker, and the sheriff is right behind you." Douglas whipped around. Sheriff Dalton was in the doorway, gun drawn. "Douglas Hale, Jr., don't move." Douglas clenched his jaw. "You think a badge scares me?" Martha stepped closer. "No, but the truth does." She hit a switch on the wall. A projector lit up. On the white sheet Martha had pinned earlier, Douglas Hale Sr.'s confession began to play. Every wicked detail, every crime, every abuse. Douglas's face collapsed. No, turn it off." Dalton stared, horrified. "My God!" Douglas roared and charged toward the projector. Dalton fired a warning shot. "Stop!" Douglas froze again, hands shaking with fury. Ava stepped into the room beside Martha, trembling but brave. Douglas saw her. He broke. "You ruined everything. You and your pathetic grandmother." Martha stepped in front of Ava. "This ends tonight, Douglas." His voice cracked, unstable. "This is your fault. You made my father a monster." Martha shook her head sharply. "No, your father made himself a monster, and you chose to become one too."
Douglas screamed and lunged for the metal box. Dalton tackled him. They crashed into the table, splintering it. Douglas fought with wild, feral strength. Dalton yelled, "Martha, get Ava out!" But Martha didn't move. Not yet. Not until it was done.
Sheriff Dalton and Douglas crashed into the broken table, wood splintering under them. Dalton gripped Douglas's arm, trying to wrestle him into a hold. "Stop resisting!" Dalton barked. Douglas growled like an animal, eyes wild. "You don't get to control me. None of you do." He slammed his elbow into Dalton's jaw, cracking bone. Dalton cried out, dropping to one knee. Ava screamed, "Sheriff!" Douglas twisted away and shoved Dalton backward into the wall with brutal force. Martha stepped in front of Ava, shielding her. Douglas's chest heaved, sweat dripping, face twisted in rage. "You think you can expose my family? You think this will stop me?" Martha met his gaze with stone-cold calm. "It already has." Dalton tried to stand, one hand clutching his jaw. "Martha, Ava, get out. He's dangerous, more than you know." Douglas smirked. "You have no idea what's coming." Dalton steadied himself. "I know enough. You assaulted a minor, stalked her grandmother, trespassed, issued threats, and you brought backup." Douglas's eyes flickered. Fear, then fury. Dalton continued, "And now I see you trying to finish your father's crimes." Douglas snapped. "My father was a great man. He did what was necessary, and I will finish what he started." Ava's breath caught. Martha's heart steadied. Dalton raised his gun again, voice shaking. "Dalton Hale, Jr., you're under arrest." Douglas lunged. Dalton fired. Bang! Ava screamed. But the bullet hit the floor as Douglas knocked Dalton's hand upward. The sheriff collapsed again. Douglas grabbed the fallen revolver, not Dalton's, Martha's, which she had placed under her shawl minutes ago. He turned toward them, weapon in hand. Ava froze. Martha pulled her close. Douglas aimed the gun. "Move away from the girl," he ordered Martha. Martha didn't budge. Douglas shouted, "I said move!" Martha's voice was cold steel. "No." Ava clutched Martha's arm tightly, crying. Douglas's eyes darted, confusion and fury mixing. "Why do you protect her this much? She isn't even your real granddaughter." Ava's heart stopped. The world fell silent. Martha's eyes deepened. "Don't you dare say another word." Douglas smirked, cruel and hungry. "Oh, she doesn't know. Well then." Martha cut him off sharply. "Ava, close your ears." Ava backed away, trembling. "Grandma, what does he mean? What is he talking about?" Douglas aimed the gun at Martha's chest. Tell her or I will." Martha swallowed hard, but her gaze stayed locked on Douglas. "You don't get to weaponize the truth," she whispered. Douglas lifted the gun higher, finger tightening on the trigger. Ava's voice shook. "Grandma, please, what is he talking about?" Martha's throat tightened. She had hidden this for years. She never wanted Ava to hear it this way. Martha stepped sideways, away from the barrel of the gun, keeping her body between Douglas and Ava. "Ava," she said gently,
Your mother, my daughter, was hurt by the Hale family long before she met your father. Ava blinked fast, trying to process. Martha continued, voice trembling. Douglas's father kept secrets, terrible ones, and your mother was one of them. Douglas laughed cruelly. She's not even related to you by blood. You took her in out of guilt because my father— Shut your mouth! Martha roared. A silence cut the room in half. Ava stared at her grandmother, terrified. Grandma, is it true? Am I not your— Martha turned fully toward Ava, eyes filling. You are my granddaughter in every way that matters. But not by blood? Ava choked. Martha shook her head slowly. I never wanted you to carry that burden. Ava broke down crying. Douglas lowered the gun slightly, enjoying every second of their pain. See? I win, he smirked. Martha's face changed in an instant. All grief evaporated. Only wrath remained. She stepped forward. No, Douglas, this is where you lose.
Douglas raised the gun again, but the floor beneath him creaked loudly, a deep, hollow sound. He froze. What was that? Martha's eyes darkened. You walked exactly where I wanted you. Douglas looked down, just as his weight shifted. Crack! The wooden floor, the one Martha had reinforced around the edges, but weakened in the center, gave way beneath Douglas. He fell through with a yell. Crash! He landed in the storage pit beneath the living room, a crawl space used decades ago for storm sheltering. The gun flew from his hand, skidding across the floor. Ava gasped. Dalton stared in shock. Douglas groaned from below. What did you do? Martha stepped to the edge, staring down at him, shadowed, powerful, unshaken. I gave you exactly what you deserve, she said quietly. Douglas tried to climb up, but the walls were too high and slick. He grabbed at the joists, failing. You crazy old witch! Let me out! Martha shook her head. No. Ava stepped beside her grandmother, shaking but brave. Grandma, what happens now? Martha didn't blink. Now we end this. Dalton stumbled to his feet, holding his jaw. Martha, don't do anything rash. Let the law handle him. Martha stared into the pit, eyes burning. Sheriff, you know what this family did. You know how many files disappeared, how many victims were silenced. Dalton hesitated. Martha, she faced him. Will you protect him, or will you finally protect someone else? Dalton swallowed hard. For the first time in years, the sheriff didn't know what the law required, but he knew what justice required. He holstered his gun slowly and whispered, Finish what you started. Ava's eyes widened. Douglas screamed from below. What are you doing? Don't let them do this. Sheriff, help me. Dalton looked away. Martha stepped closer to the edge. Douglas Hale, Jr., you will never hurt anyone again. Douglas trembled in fear. Martha reached for something in her pocket, a small, round object. Ava whispered, Grandma, what is that? Martha didn't answer. She just said, It's time. Douglas stared up from the pit, chest heaving, eyes burning with terror. What is that? He panted. Martha didn't answer immediately. She slowly opened her hand.
A small silver key glinted under the living room light. Douglas's face went pale. No, no, where did you get that? Martha stepped closer to the edge of the pit, her voice quiet and sharp. This is the key your father used to lock his secret cabinet, the same cabinet he hid the confessions in. Douglas shook his head violently. You're lying. Martha didn't blink. I buried this key the night I ran, and I dug it up tonight. Douglas's breath hitched. If that key exists, then the cabinet still exists. He froze. And the confession inside, Martha finished his sentence, is enough to destroy the Hale name forever. Ava stood behind Martha, trembling but braver than before. Sheriff Dalton watched silently, knowing the truth was bigger than any law he could enforce alone. Douglas's voice cracked. Give me the key. Please give it to me. Martha shook her head calmly. No. Douglas's desperation turned to fury. You don't understand. My father, he told me you were the liar. He said you ruined him. He said you drove him to madness. Martha stepped even closer. No. I exposed him, and he tried to destroy me for it. Douglas roared. You took everything from him. Martha's voice hardened. Your father lost everything because of his own violence. You're losing everything for the same reason. Douglas slammed both palms against the wall of the pit. Don't say his name! Don't you dare! He clawed at the wooden beams, trying to climb, slipping each time. The pit was too deep. He was too frantic. Martha stayed silent, letting him see the truth, letting him break. Dalton limped forward, holding his injured jaw. Martha, what's your plan here? He asked quietly. Douglas heard him and snapped. She's trying to kill me. Martha didn't look at Dalton. No. If I wanted you dead, Douglas, you would be dead. Douglas froze. Martha held the key up again. This key unlocks more than a cabinet. It unlocks the truth. Douglas's eyes darted wildly. Give it to me. Martha looked at Dalton. Sheriff, you know what this means. Dalton's jaw tightened. That confession, if it's real, it would implicate half the officials who protected your husband. Exactly, Martha said. A tense silence followed. Dalton whispered, the department would bury it. Ava cried out, what? Dalton looked ashamed. The Hales had people everywhere, still do. Douglas laughed from the pit. See, you can't win, even with proof. Ava pressed closer to her grandmother. Grandma, they'll protect him? Martha shook her head slowly. No, not this time. Douglas blinked. What do you mean? Martha stepped closer to the edge, staring directly into the pit. Douglas, the only reason you're alive right now is because the law still has a chance. Douglas scoffed. The law? Sheriff Dalton can't stop me. He can't even get up without groaning. Dalton glared, but remained silent. Douglas continued. You want justice? Fine. Call the cops. Let them arrest me. But you won't, Margaret, because you want to do it yourself. For the first time, a flicker of conflict crossed Martha's face. Douglas seized it. You want revenge, he whispered. You want to finish what you started with my father. Martha closed her eyes. Ava's voice trembled. Grandma, don't listen to him. Douglas leaned against the pit wall, smirking. You can't hand me to the police. You can't kill me. You can't expose my father without exposing yourself too." Martha opened her eyes again. This time they were colder than ever. "You're wrong," she whispered. Douglas frowned. Martha knelt beside the pit with the key held between two fingers. "I don't need to kill you," she said softly. "I just need to expose you." She tossed the key across the room. The metal clink echoed like a bell of doom. Douglas's face contorted. "No! No, no, no! Don't do this!" But Martha wasn't finished.
She lifted the metal box again. Douglas twisted in terror. "Stop! Don't open it, please!" Martha opened the lid. Inside was the confession tape, the letters, the photographs, the evidence of abuse, the logs of threats, the medical reports, the signed statement Douglas didn't know existed. Douglas shook violently. What is that last paper?" Martha held it up. "The only police report your father didn't manage to burn." Douglas flinched as if struck. "That's impossible." "No," Martha said. "You and your father believed you were invincible. That was your first mistake." Douglas choked on his breath. "And your second," Martha continued, "you came after my granddaughter." Douglas finally snapped. "You ruined us. I'll kill you. I'll kill your whole family. You hear me?" His voice echoed up the walls of the pit. Ava cried harder. Dalton tightened his grip on his holster. And then Martha said the words Douglas never expected. "You're not going to jail tonight." Douglas froze. Ava gasped. Dalton's jaw dropped. "What?" he whispered. Douglas laughed, relief flooding him. "So you are going to finish me. I knew it. I knew you were a murderer, just like he said." "No," Martha interrupted quietly. "I'm not killing you." She stepped back slowly. "I'm letting you out." Ava screamed. "What?" Dalton shouted, "Martha, no! He's armed and dangerous!" Douglas's grin spread. "Oh, Margaret, you finally made the stupidest decision of your life." Martha lifted her chin. "No, Douglas. I'm giving you one chance to face consequences without bloodshed." She reached for the rope ladder hanging by the corner. Douglas's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Smart woman. Now help me climb out, and maybe I'll—" Martha cut him off. "I'm not helping you." Douglas's grin faltered. Martha held the ladder. "I'm giving you the choice." Douglas stared. "You're letting me climb out?" "Yes," Martha said. "And then what?" he asked quietly. Martha stepped back. "You walk outside. You surrender to the sheriff. You face every truth you tried to bury." Douglas's face twisted. "Never." "Then stay in the pit," Martha said calmly. Douglas's breath grew wild. "And if I climb out and kill you?" he hissed. Martha locked eyes with him. "I've already prepared for that too." Douglas blinked. "What does that mean?" Martha turned toward Ava. "It means he only has one path left," she said softly.
Douglas felt the walls closing in. "What path?" Martha whispered. "The one where you finally answer for your family's sins." Douglas stared up at Martha, chest heaving, sweat running down his temple. "You're giving me a choice," he whispered mockingly. "Yes," Martha said. "And if I climb out, you expect me to surrender to him?" He nodded toward the sheriff. "I expect you to face justice," Martha answered. Douglas laughed, unhinged, bitter. "No, justice doesn't exist for people like me. My father taught me that." Martha's voice softened. "And look how well that lesson served him." Douglas's face twitched. A nerve struck deep. He looked at the rope ladder, then at Martha, then at Ava. His breathing slowed, his eyes hardened. He said, "I'm climbing out." Ava's heart dropped. Dalton took a step forward. "Douglas, think carefully. Any attempt to attack either of them is a felony. Armed assault, attempted homicide." Douglas cut him off. "Shut up, Sheriff. I'll climb out, and then we'll see what happens." Ava whispered, "Grandma, don't let him." Martha clasped her hand tight. "Let him come. He makes his own noose with every step." Douglas began climbing. Douglas gripped the rope ladder, pulling himself upward. His shoes scraped against the wooden beams. He grunted, climbed, paused, climbed more. Every inch closer to Martha felt like he was rising toward a kill. Ava backed away behind Martha. Dalton aimed his gun, limping, shaking. "Douglas, stop right there," Dalton warned. Douglas ignored him. He reached the top. His fingers gripped the edge of the floor. His face rose into view, eyes burning, teeth clenched. Martha stepped back, letting him climb fully out. Douglas wiped dirt from his shirt. He looked around. He looked at Martha. He looked at the sheriff. He smiled. "Now," he said softly, "which one of you should I deal with first?" Ava gasped and ran behind the kitchen counter. Dalton raised his gun higher. "I said don't move!" Douglas turned slowly toward him. "You fired once. Do you have the guts to fire again?" Dalton hesitated, jaw clenched in pain. Douglas's grin widened. He stepped forward. With a sudden, vicious move, Douglas lunged toward Dalton. Dalton fired. Bang! Douglas twisted sideways, avoiding most of the shot, but the bullet grazed his shoulder. He screamed in pain, but didn't stop. He tackled Dalton, slamming him to the ground. The sheriff's weapon skidded across the floor. Ava screamed, "Sheriff!" Douglas punched Dalton once, twice, 3 times. Blood splattered. Dalton groaned, dazed. Douglas grabbed the gun. He turned toward Martha, panting, bleeding, eyes pure rage. "It's over," he hissed. "This time, it ends my way." Martha stood perfectly still. Ava whispered, "Grandma, run!" Martha didn't move. Douglas aimed the gun at her chest. "Say goodbye." He pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. Douglas blinked. "What?" Martha's eyes glinted. "I unloaded it when you weren't looking." Douglas roared in fury and hurled the gun aside. "Then I'll do it with my bare hands." He charged Martha. Ava screamed. Dalton tried to get up, but collapsed. Douglas reached Martha, and Martha stepped aside with calculated precision. Douglas stumbled past her, straight into the kitchen counter. He turned back, panting. Martha whispered, "Come outside, Douglas. If you want to finish this, finish it where the truth began." Douglas paused, then smirked. "Oh, I will." He stormed toward the front door. Martha followed him. Ava cried, "Grandma, don't go!" Martha turned to her. "Stay inside. Lock the door. Whatever happens out there, do not come out." Ava froze, then nodded through tears. Martha stepped outside into the night. Douglas waited at the bottom of the porch steps. Dalton, struggling, shouted weakly, "Martha, wait, don't, he's dangerous." Martha answered without turning, "I know." She closed the door behind her. The night air was cold, the sky moonless. The orchard behind the house stretched like a dark hallway of twisted branches. Douglas's footsteps crunched on gravel. "Where are we going, old woman?" Martha stayed several paces ahead of him, walking with eerie calm. "To the orchard," she said. Douglas scoffed. "Why there?" "Because that is where your father hurt me for the last time," Martha whispered. "And tonight, where you face the consequences." Douglas's smile twisted. "Oh, this is perfect, poetic even." He ran his hand along his wounded shoulder. "You're shaking," he mocked. Martha didn't look back. "I'm not shaking. I'm choosing." Douglas frowned. "Choosing what?" "To end the Hale cruelty on the same soil where it began." Douglas's eyes darkened. "Is that supposed to scare me?" "No," Martha said softly. "It's supposed to punish you." They reached the orchard. Tall shadows, dead leaves, the smell of damp earth. Douglas stepped between the trees, closing the distance between them. "Stop walking," he demanded. Martha did. She turned. Douglas cracked his knuckles. "No sheriff, no granddaughter, just us." Martha studied him. "Your father said those same words to me once," she murmured. Douglas smirked. "Well, I'll finish what he couldn't." He took one step toward her. A spotlight suddenly snapped on overhead. Douglas flinched. What is this?" A camera light blinked on as well. Douglas stared around confused. What is this?" Martha stepped backward. "You're standing in the only place on my land that has 4 cameras pointed at it." Douglas's face blanched. Martha whispered, "And the whole town is watching." Douglas turned, seeing the blinking red recording lights around him. He howled, "No!" He charged Martha, who ran deeper into the orchard. Douglas sprinted after her, panting, angrier than he had been all night. "Stop running!" He chased her through the narrow orchard rows. Branches clawed at him, roots caught his feet. Martha moved with surprising agility, weaving through the trees. Douglas stumbled. "Where are you taking me?" he shouted. Martha replied from ahead, "To the place your father bled." Douglas's eyes widened. "What?" But before he could slow down, his foot hit something metal. Snap! A wire trap tightened around his ankle, yanking him sideways. Douglas crashed into the dirt with a scream. Martha stopped several feet away, turning back slowly. Douglas thrashed against the wire. What did you do?" Martha's face was shadowed by the moon. "Everything I needed to."
Douglas writhed in the dirt, the steel snare cutting deeper into his ankle with every desperate jerk. "Let me out!" he roared. The wire tightened again. He screamed. Martha approached slowly, the cold night air brushing her hair back. "You walked right into it," she said. "You think this will stop me?" Douglas spat, trying to crawl forward. Martha shook her head. "No, this isn't meant to stop you." Douglas froze. "Then what is it for?" Martha took a deep breath. "It's meant to reveal who you truly are." Douglas snarled, "I'll kill you! I'll kill your granddaughter! I'll—" Martha interrupted softly. "And now you set it all on camera." Douglas's rage faltered. "What?" Martha pointed upward. On the branches above them were motion cameras blinking red, recording every second. Douglas's face drained of color. You tricked me." "No," Martha corrected. "You revealed yourself. You always do." Douglas tried again to pull free, blood smearing the dirt.
Douglas glared up at her, chest heaving. "What do you want from me? Why can't you just let it go?" Martha's expression remained steady, but her voice shook slightly. "Because the last time I let it go, your father nearly killed me, and the town let him walk free. The police protected him. His friends silenced me. And I never forgave myself for surviving while others didn't." Douglas blinked, stunned by the intensity of her voice. Martha continued, "I swore if any Hale ever tried to repeat that legacy, I would be ready." Douglas spat on the ground. "You're insane!" Martha's eyes burned. "No, I'm awake." Suddenly, Douglas stopped struggling. His eyes sharpened. He reached behind his back, pulling out a small concealed knife strapped under his shirt. Ava had seen the outline earlier, but now it gleamed in the moonlight. Martha's breath caught. Douglas cut the snare in one violent slice. The tension snapped. Douglas rolled free, scrambling to his feet with a savage grin. "You really thought a piece of wire could hold me?" He lunged at Martha with the blade. Martha turned and ran deeper into the orchard. Leaves crunched beneath them. Branches slapped against Martha's arms. Douglas chased her limping, but fast, knife drawn. "You can't run forever, old woman." Martha didn't look back. She knew these trees. She knew every root, every ditch, every broken line of old fencing. Douglas didn't. He tripped once, twice, but forced himself up each time. "You're dead. Ava is mine.
Your family is finished. Martha kept running until she reached the clearing. She stopped. Douglas burst through the branches seconds later, panting, wild. "That's right. Stand right there," he growled. He raised the knife. "And die with dignity." Martha's voice was ice. "No." Douglas blinked. "What?" "I die on no man's terms, and certainly not on a Hale's." Douglas stepped closer. "I don't need your permission." He lunged.
The moment Douglas launched forward, Martha stepped sideways and yanked a rope tied around a tree stump. Whip! Shoo! A massive, weighted net fell from the upper branches of the orchard, slamming down on Douglas. He hit the ground with a howl as the heavy ropes tightened around his arms and legs. What is this?" Martha watched him struggle. "Your father used to hunt deer with nets like this," she said quietly. "I learned how every trap worked." Douglas thrashed, but every movement only tangled him deeper. His knife fell from his grasp. "Let me out!" he screamed. Martha knelt beside him. "No," she said softly. "You never let anyone else out of your control. Your father didn't either." Douglas stared up at her, sweat and dirt smeared across his face. "You think this is justice?" Martha shook her head. "No. This is just the truth catching up to you." Douglas shouted louder. "Someone help me! Anyone! Help!" Martha looked around. "The cameras can hear you. The sheriff is inside. Ava is safe. This time, you scream into the void alone." Douglas's breathing grew frantic.
No, no, please, don't let this happen. Don't expose my family, my father, my name.
"It's too late," Martha whispered. Douglas's eyes bulged. He thrashed wildly. He used his teeth to try and tear the rope. He kicked so hard that one boot flew off. He clawed at the dirt until his fingers bled. Nothing worked. Martha didn't flinch. This was the moment she had waited 40 years for. Douglas's voice broke. "Margaret, please, don't do this." Martha knelt. Her voice softened, but only slightly. "You had so many chances, after the fire, after the school, after the first threat, after Ava cried in my arms." Douglas trembled. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Martha said. "You meant every word." Douglas looked up at her, pitiful and furious. "Please, I don't want to die." Martha exhaled. "You won't." Douglas froze. Martha added, "But your reign ends tonight." Sheriff Dalton limped into the clearing. One hand pressed to his bleeding jaw. "Martha," he gasped, "I heard screaming. He stopped dead when he saw Douglas tangled in the net. Douglas screamed, "Sheriff, get me out! This is illegal! Arrest her!" Dalton stared, silent. Then he met Martha's eyes. Martha nodded. "It's time." Dalton holstered his gun. He stepped beside Martha. Douglas stared up at the two of them, horrified. What are you doing? Aren't you the law?" Dalton sighed. "Yeah," he said, "and the law protected your family for 40 years too long." Douglas shook violently. "No, no, please, Dalton, please." Dalton pulled out his cuffs. "You are under arrest for attempted murder
aggravated assault, stalking, and possession of illegal weapons. Douglas broke down screaming, "No, no, please, this isn't fair. You can't do this to me. I'm a Hale." Martha's voice cut through him. "Not any more." Dalton tightened the cuffs over the net's ropes. Douglas was caught, restrained, finished.
Martha crouched down one last time. Douglas stopped screaming, panting like a cornered animal. Martha whispered, "You wanted a legacy, Douglas. Now you have one. A legacy of truth, a legacy of justice, a legacy of every victim your family tried to silence." Douglas shook his head weakly. "Please, don't ruin my name." Martha stood. "You ruined it yourself." The wind rustled through the orchard. A long silence followed. Then Martha turned and walked back toward the farmhouse. Dalton dragged Douglas behind her, still trapped in the net. Douglas's cries faded into the night. And the orchard, the same place where Martha once lost her freedom, now held her justice.
The orchard fell silent again as Sheriff Dalton dragged Douglas toward his cruiser. The net scraped against dirt. Douglas's screams had faded into exhausted sobs. Martha walked ahead, every step heavy but steady. At the farmhouse porch, Ava stood shaking, tears streaking down her face. "Grandma," she cried, running to her. Martha wrapped her arms tightly around her granddaughter. Ava held on like she would never let go. "Is it over?" she whispered through trembling breaths. Martha rested her cheek on Ava's hair. "Yes," she said softly, "it's finally over." But inside Martha's voice there was something deeper. Not triumph, not victory, but release. 40 years of carrying a wound, finally allowed to breathe.
Dalton shoved Douglas, still tangled in rope and cuffs, into the back of his cruiser. Douglas screamed weakly, "You'll regret this. I'll be out. My family." Dalton slammed the door. "No," he said quietly. "Your family's power ends tonight." He radioed in, voice hoarse. "Dispatch, this is Dalton. I have the suspect in custody. Send backup, bring an ambulance, and contact the state investigators. We're reopening a 40-year-old case." The line crackled. Then, "Copy that, Sheriff. Backup en route." Dalton looked toward Martha and Ava on the porch. He'd seen fear in many forms, but tonight he saw something else. Freedom being reclaimed.
Inside the quiet farmhouse, Ava and Martha sat at the kitchen table. The metal box sat between them. Ava swallowed. "Grandma, I need to know everything." Martha hesitated, then nodded. She opened the box and slowly explained how Douglas Hale Sr. preyed on women in their town, how he manipulated the system, how Martha's daughter, Ava's mother, was one of his victims, how Martha escaped with her life, and how she vowed to protect Ava from ever learning that darkness until she was strong enough to hold it. Ava's hands trembled uncontrollably. "Grandma, is that why Mom never told me who my father was?" Martha nodded slowly. "She wanted you to have a chance at a childhood without that shadow." Ava wiped her tears. "And you raised me like your own." Martha cupped Ava's face gently. You are my own, in every way that matters. Ava broke down into her arms. Dalton stepped into the house, holding a bandage to his jaw. Martha, they're taking Douglas to the county holding facility. State investigators will arrive tomorrow morning. Martha nodded. Good. Dalton exhaled deeply. I want you to know I'm sorry for not seeing the truth years ago, for not helping you when you needed it. Martha touched his arm. You're helping now. That matters. Dalton swallowed hard, emotion choking his voice. You saved a lot of future victims tonight. Martha simply said, No, I saved my granddaughter.
The next morning, sunlight spilled across the orchard, revealing broken branches, disturbed soil, and the imprint of a net. But also peace. Martha stood on the porch, sipping her tea. Ava joined her, leaning against her side. Grandma, what happens now? Martha breathed in the morning air. Now we heal. Ava nodded. Will the truth go public? Martha smiled gently. It already has. Ava blinked. What do you mean? Martha pointed to the cameras around the property. They were all connected to Tom's satellite uplink. The moment Douglas confessed, the recordings synced to 3 separate cloud drives. Ava's jaw dropped. So even if he tries to deny it? He can't, Martha finished. His family's power ends with him. Ava exhaled shakily. And what about us? Martha hugged her. We start over. Without fear, without shadows. For the first time in years, Martha felt the weight lift from her chest. Ava whispered, You're the bravest person I've ever known. Martha smiled. No, sweetheart, courage isn't being fearless. It's choosing to stand, even when fear tries to swallow you. Ava rested her head on Martha's shoulder. I love you, Grandma. I love you too.
3 weeks later, a news report played on the television. Douglas Hale Jr. has officially been charged with 14 counts, including attempted homicide, aggravated kidnapping, and forced intimidation. State investigators confirm reopening of the Douglas Hale Sr. abuse case from 40 years ago. Ava turned off the TV and looked at Martha. Do you think he'll get out? Martha shook her head. Not this time. Not with the whole world watching. Ava took her grandmother's hand. You stop the cycle. Martha squeezed back. We stopped it. In the orchard, Martha planted a small cherry tree, a symbol of new beginnings. Ava helped her cover the roots with soil. What's this one for? Ava asked. Martha smiled softly. For your mother. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Martha continued, for everything she lost and everything you regained. Ava hugged her tightly. The orchard felt lighter that day, as if the land itself could finally breathe again.
At sunset, Martha and Ava sat on the porch swing, rocking gently. Ava whispered, Grandma, are we safe now? Martha looked out at the orchard glowing gold in the evening light. Yes, she said. For the first time in decades, we are safe. Ava leaned her head on her shoulder. And tomorrow, she asked. Martha kissed her forehead. Tomorrow, we live. The camera would fade out on the two of them. a grandmother who survived, a granddaughter who escaped, and a family that finally broke the chain of generational violence.